Back in 2018, Minecraft seemed like it was on the way out. Even during the renaissance of the 2020s, there was a constant growing distaste for the direction the game was taking. The yearly updates started to lack substance and were smaller in scope with each release. It was becoming clear that something needed to change. It's not like there wasn't any kind of competition. Open world survival crafting games are a dime a dozen, even now in 2025. But Minecraft was and is ahead of the competition by many leagues. Enter Hytale. Announced in 2018, it's an open-world, block-based adventure game being developed by Hypixel Studios. Yes, that Hypixel. If there's anyone who understands block game players, it's the people who run the biggest block game server in the world. Its announcement trailer in 2018 garnered 61 million views as of 2025. Needless to say, people were excited for this game. Not only were Hypixel Studios promising a fully fledged action-adventure game in a customizable block world like Minecraft, they also showcased powerful tools for players to create their own user-generated content. You could enjoy the base game experience, but the game could also be molded to any player's liking. For the first couple months after the game's announcement, the community was barraged with updates on development, server software, character customization, in-game content creation, and more. Development continued and communication from the team happened monthly, even sometimes more frequent. The success of the announcement trailer had shown the team that not only was this game a huge opportunity, it was likely to be an extremely successful one too. This was confirmed by Simon Hypixel himself in a blog post on April 16, 2020, titled "Entering a New Era for Hypixel Studios." If you've been following our development updates over the course of the last year, you'll know that the success of the Hytale announcement changed everything for us. He goes on to announce that the studio had been acquired by Riot Games, creator of League of Legends, and that Simon Hypixel would be stepping back from the studio. Communication from the dev team continued as usual until the end of 2020, where the team switched to only releasing blog posts twice a year, and in summer 2022, over 2 years after the acquisition, they would make an even bigger announcement. Before we get into this developer update, we need to talk about game engines. Like the name suggests, it's like the engine of a car. You can have all the art, sound effects, animations, 3D models, etc., but without something to put it all together, then you don't have much of a game. Hytale uses a custom game engine that was written in Java, likely stemming from the development team's roots working on the Hypixel Minecraft server. Now, you can write a game in pretty much any programming language. I wrote a mostly fully functional game engine in a web browser when I was in college, but what programming language you use does affect many aspects of how your game will turn out. That's as far as I'm going to get into the more technical side of it, but if you're interested in hearing more of the nerdy details about game engines, let me know if you want a dedicated video in the future. Communication from the team slowed down heavily after this. Future developer updates would still focus on new content, but with an interesting twist. The Hytale team was effectively split into two sides now, the new engine and the legacy engine. Despite the game being essentially remade from the ground up, development continued on the game using the legacy engine, while the team developing the new engine had time to catch up. This is where the direction of this video is going to change a little bit. I started writing this video about 6 months ago, and if you already know how the story I'm telling ends, then you'll understand the conclusion that I had written for this video wouldn't really make sense anymore. I still think it's important to give context to how things were going, so I'm going to give you a short explanation of how the video was originally supposed to end, and then continue the story up until today. The reason the game was being rebuilt from the ground up was pretty obvious when you consider just what it was up against. Riot, the king of free-to-play multiplayer games, had their chance to buy a shot at competing with the likes of Roblox, Minecraft, and Fortnite. Not to mention, a lot of the original developers for the game had also come from Riot. Large-scale online games, primarily driven by user-generated content, are practically money printers for the companies that own them. I spoke on the technical side of redeveloping the game earlier, but I will touch on the business side of the decision now too. With the stakes I laid out earlier, it's easy to see why you'd want to make the game as accessible and extensible as possible. Multi-platform games capture as much of their audience as they can, and don't forget about that sweet mobile gamer money. Rebuilding the game with the highly performant and easily updatable live service model in mind means the game can survive longer and adapt quickly to changes in market demands. Redesigning the game meant Hytale wasn't just going to be a reimagined version of Minecraft designed to capture disaffected Java players looking for something new. It was a ticket into one of the most lucrative markets in gaming. As the team continued on, development updates started to focus more and more on the design philosophy of the game rather than technical progress. As you might imagine, rebuilding a game from the ground up takes a long time, and it would be quite a while before we saw real progress that wasn't just a couple sentences at the end of the blog post assuring fans that all was well. The first few glimpses of the new engine made it clear that the team had to take a big step back, but by the spring of 2025, we began to see gameplay footage and even announcement of external playtesting. Finally. Hopes were high that after this update, we were going to see a solid foundation for an alpha or even a release date announcement. But just a couple months after that, everything would change. On June 23rd, 2025, in a blog post titled A Difficult Update About Hytale, CEO Noxy would announce that the development on Hytale was ending and Hypixel Studios would be closing its doors. He says he even tried to find another team that would be able to take on the challenge of finishing the game, even if it wasn't Riot, but they were unsuccessful. The story of Hytale doesn't quite end there, though. During the subsequent mourning the game received on social media, some people started to float the idea of a revival project for the game. While it had only been dead for a matter of hours, #SaveHytale started to pop up on Twitter. A thread started by Twitter user Owl pitched the idea of Simon Hypixel partnering with Riot to finish the game. After a polite request from Tubbo on Twitter to make a Kickstarter funding a revival project, Simon posted this tweet, saying that he's willing to drop up to $25 million of his own money to buy back the rights to Hytale from Riot and finish the game. He goes on to explain that the approach he would have to take would be far different from the Hytale we had grown to know over the last 3 years, and that the ultimate goal would be to release in early access as soon as possible. Completely different from the development strategy under Riot, the idea would be to just launch. I know I compared this game to Minecraft a lot in this video, but their stories are quite intertwined. I think where the Riot team went wrong was by neglecting one of the largest aspects of the early story of Minecraft and what ultimately made the game what it is today: early access. They were chasing perfection, and with the way the game industry had been going for the last couple of years, luck was not on their side. Riot has struggled a lot over the last couple years, laying off nearly 11% of their staff and facing financial struggles. While not directly a part of it, Riot had another project called Riot Forge, where they would publish games under smaller studios. The project ended up shutting down in January of 2024, leaving Hytale as one of the last few remaining external projects for Riot. Simon has indicated that he's going to keep quiet for now. Making a deal for IP rights is a slow process, and it's definitely not going to happen publicly. It will likely be some time before we see the next chapter in Hytale's story, if any. But as someone who has continually been on this game's side, I hope it's a good one. There are a lot of accusations being thrown around right now on social media about whose fault it was, but I think the game's story up until this point is a good lesson in chasing perfection. As soon as the team had access to the nearly infinite Riot Games money, their strategy completely shifted. They went from being a small team of 30 people to trying to take on the biggest game in the world in a matter of just a couple years. All in all, I think the team ended up losing sight of their goal. If the team had just decided to launch the game earlier, they could have leveraged their own player base to decide the direction they needed to take the game in. But without that feedback, the features and the scope of the game ended up creeping up until it became unsustainable. I hope that one day we'll all get to see the Hytale that the developers wanted the game to be. But right now, we can only sit back and hope. Simon himself says that the chance of the game releasing is only about 1%, but there is a hopeful community still waiting for any news they can get. If you want to hear more about Hytale or gaming in general, make sure you click subscribe and check out my Twitch channel in the link below. Thanks for watching.